The rest of the first session is on Islamic retail banking and takaful. This is a panel presentation and a panel discussion. May I please invite my session chair, it will be Pervez Ahmed, who's the CEO of Pak Qatar Family Takaful Limited. If you could kindly come on stage. Mr. Najmul Hassan, who's the former CEO Gulf African Bank, Kenya. The moderator for the session will be Mr. Fouad Farooq, who's the head of Islamic banking at Faisal Bank Limited. The panelists include Dr. Imran Usmani, who's the Sharia advisor at Mizan Bank Limited. Mr. Imtiaz Bhatti, who's the MD and CEO at Pak Kuwait Takaful Company Limited. Mohammed Imran, Head of Retail and Consumer Banking at Bank Islami Pakistan Limited. And Mr. Najmul Khan, who's the Chief Operating Officer at Pak Qatar General Takaful Limited. This ethical dilemma, one of the issues is also that we don't clap with as much as we wish to. So a little bit more appreciation for a panel and for all of you is greatly appreciated also. Thank you very much. The way this session will commence is with a presentation by Mr. Najmul Hassan, who's the former CEO of Gulf African Bank, Kenya. He'll be giving a brief presentation on the growth of Islamic banking in Africa. This will be followed by the engaging panel discussion. So, Najmul sir.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Assalamu alaikum, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Najmul Hassan. I'm going to really share my experience of over about 3 years in Africa, setting up the first Islamic bank, running it, making it a profitable business. And I thought that there is a lot to share, a lot to learn on how Islamic Bank is progressing, not just here in Pakistan and in Asia, but share my experience of 3 years in Africa and see how it has fared over there. I have been associated with Islamic banking for some time. I have been with Mizan Bank for a long time, since I think 2000 or 2001 till 2008. And then since then I was in Kenya. And presently I am advising ICD, which is a subsidiary of Islamic Development Bank, on their investments in Africa. Let me just move on to my first slide, which really just gives an outline to what I will be talking about. I think we have all passed through and continue to pass through a financial crisis. We are looking at a double dip in recession maybe setting in, and I think it's a great time for us to begin to aggressively put forward Islamic banking as an alternate to conventional banking, because there are clearly challenges of meeting the growth requirements by only controlling liquidity. So I'm going to just touch upon a few slides on why do we need Islamic banking. I'll also just put 2 slides on the success story that Islamic banking has been, and then share my African experience, which is the real body of what I'm going to talk about, and then give some conclusion. Now, like I said, I think all of us know that we're going through this cycle of recessions and inflations and growths and depressions, and the cycle seems to get deeper and deeper each time. Every time the recession comes, it's longer. It's more frightening than the previous one. And I think this is a point in time when we begin to introduce Islamic banking not just as something which is for Muslims, and I think that's what Dr. Anis Ahmed mentioned over here, but as something that can actually help solve your problem. The root of Islamic banking is for Muslims, maybe they are coming in for faith, but there is a vast majority of people who are also looking for an alternate solution to conventional banking, which has so far not provided the solution that they need. So it is, how can I make your dream come true? So I think it's a great time for us to relook at Islamic banking, not just as something driven by faith, but something which is driven by human nature, by justice, by equality, by equity, and introduce it as something which can be thought about. I just picked a picture from a recent magazine, and this picture says capitalism isn't working. And this is a mass protest taking place in UK, and people are saying that, is there another world possible? I think there is another world possible, and that is the world of Islamic finance. And that is something that we need to project Islamic banking as a solution, so to provide a solution for the current problems that the world is facing. So is the way out Islamic banking? Definitely. I think the way out for the problems that the world has faced is Islamic banking, because the solution lies in shifting to the equity-based financing, which is the primary characteristic of Islamic finance. Every time Islamic bank does a transaction, there is wealth created in a society, whether it's a murabah transaction or ijara transaction or any transaction. There is a certain degree of wealth which is created in a society, and it is wealth which creates well-being, which is basically what falah, how falah comes in. So therefore, the more Islamic banks do transactions, the more wealth is created and more well-being is introduced inside any economy. As of now, this global credit crisis presents a $1 trillion opportunity for Islamic finance industry, with an opportunity to increase their presence and their appeal beyond just the Muslim investors. So this form of banking is not just only for Muslims, but it is there for the Christians, for the Jews, for the atheists, for the agnostics, for anyone, because it has something that they are really looking for, both in terms of its social responsibility, since it does not allow investment in things which are morally or physically hazardous for people, and also in the fact that it shuns financing which is highly speculative in nature. So therefore, it has a solution for everyone. And that is the reason why you find that Islamic banking has become a success story. If you look at the success story of Islamic banking today, there are more than 350 Islamic financial institutions world over. And this is really not a small figure. And this Islamic finance today, if you look at the total number of assets or accounts under Islamic finance, these are reaching nearly $1 trillion. Fine, it is very small as compared to the entire economy of the world. I mean, the world is probably about 100 trillion, so it's maybe just about a 1% share. But the fact that it has reached to $1 trillion clearly shows that there is something in it, there's a huge potential, and the upside is that it can actually grow from 1 trillion to 4 trillion or 10 trillion, and yet be 10% of the world, of the world economy. According to Moody's Investor, it is growing at the rate of anywhere between 10 to 30% in different countries. According to Asian Development Bank, also the combined value of Islamic assets globally is in the region of $1 trillion today, and growing at the rate of 10 to 15%. Compare that against the conventional banks, which are very flat as far as their growth is concerned, or the growth is very nominal. Now, please remember that all this growth that we see today, even if it is at $1 trillion, all this growth has come about by a model which actually rejects interest payment, shuns speculation, and heavy borrowing. I remember in the year, I think 2001 or 2002, I was invited by Islamic International University for giving a talk. Justice Saab was there at that time, giving a talk to bankers on Islamic finance. And there were people from all different banks, Habib Bank, National Bank, and senior people. And this was a 10-day program. After the 10th day, one of the students who was there attending this program, he got up and he made a speech, and he said, yes, we've understood all these contracts that you talk about, the murabahas and the ijaras and etc. But he said that I think these are extremely difficult to implement, difficult to understand, and extremely cumbersome from their administrative point of view. So therefore, we do not believe that this form of banking that you're talking about is going to become a mainstay, or at least is going to catch up. There may be a niche market for these products, but certainly it's not going to get widespread. That was one of the students who was there. Unfortunately, how wrong he was. Today, Islamic banking has a share of nearly 7%, with about financing or deposits of nearly about 440 billion, growing at a rapid pace. And this is not just here in Pakistan, it is the world over. And remember that there are a lot of things that Islamic banks cannot do, and despite that, they continue to show this growth. Now, if you look at the projection of how Islamic banking is expected to grow, it is going to reach nearly above $2 trillion US dollars, or 2.8 trillion US dollars by the year 2015. And the rate at which it is growing now, probably even much earlier than that. Therefore, from 1 trillion US dollars, it is expected to grow 3 times in the next few years. So here it provides a great opportunity for people who are associated with Islamic banking and Islamic finance in whatever way, in whatever capacity, that this is an industry which is going to continue to grow. Now, on my African experience, let me just give you a brief flavor of the 3 years, or a little over 3 years, that I was there in Kenya. And not only just in Kenya, but also traveled in the African region, looking at the initiatives and the opportunities that are there for Islamic finance over there. Give you a sort of a global picture of what Africa is. Africa is the second largest continent in the world. It has an area of 11.5 million square miles, so it's very large. It has 54 countries with a population of 1.2 billion. 15%, which is the 15% of the world population, so a large number of people living in Africa. Majority of population is young, like in Pakistan, poor, like here in Asia, and rural. Therefore, this is a market which is going to come and grow, and it is going to be a huge market in years to come. If you look at the economy in Africa, you find that the GDP is growing at the rate of 4.5% per annum. That was in 2010. It is expected to even increase in growth from 4.5 to 5.5 in this year, 2011, and then grow at a rate of nearly about 6.5% in the next 5 years. This is driven by huge investments that are going in Angola, in Tanzania, in Uganda, in many of these areas over there. This is the best growth that Africa has really achieved in the last decade. Today, Africa is a continent which is rich in raw material. The number of mobile users in Africa has increased to 300 million. And so still there is a huge opportunity looking at a population of nearly 1.2 billion. From a banking point of view, if you look at Africa, Africa has over 75% of people unbanked. So purely from a banking point of view, it is, you can really go and create a market over there. The banking penetration is relatively low. In the urban areas, it's 60%. In the rural areas, it is less than 20%. Only 1/5 of people in Africa have a bank account. So again, that's just about 20% of the population, and a large number to do that. Recently, UN survey finds that in areas like Malawi as well as in Senegal, the number of people who are in the banking sector are between 5% to 7%. And so therefore, there is a huge opportunity for people who have very low penetration, or banks have very low penetration, to introduce Islamic banking afresh. You don't have people who are corrupted by conventional banking, and Islamic banking can be introduced to be one of the ways in which they can do business. Now, if you look at Muslims, particularly in the African continent, you find that 50% of the population is Muslim. This is in Africa, this is the second largest Muslim population in the world. And most of the northern countries are completely Muslim, which is Algeria, Egypt, Libya, Morocco, on the northern side. The North African portion is mostly, or majority of people are Muslims. According to the Moody's investors, the Islamic services today are worth 235 billion US dollars, which is the African continent. And I think this is such a huge opportunities for people from Pakistan, because what we do have is knowledge. Islamic banking is really a knowledge-based industry. And the kind of knowledge that is existing in Pakistan is something that can very easily be exported. It can very easily be used to ensure that the correct Islamic banking is set up over there. The actual depth of Sharia-compliant financial intermediaries was only 18 billion in the year 2007, and half these assets were in Sudan and Egypt. So you can see that there is a huge market potential with 18 billion right now. According to Moody's, it can go up to 235 billion US dollars. So that provides a huge opportunity. Countries which are offering Islamic finance today in Africa, we have South Africa, which is trying to take the lead to become the center of Islamic finance in Africa itself, competing very closely with Kenya, Botswana, Kenya, Algeria, Nigeria, Egypt, Sudan, Tunisia, and Mauritius. These are the places where you already have Islamic financial institutions in form of banks or companies. Some of the countries which are contemplating or about to start Islamic finance are Tanzania, Malawi, Zambia, and Uganda. And I know that ICD is also planning to set up a bank in Tanzania and as well as in Uganda. Again, the first Islamic banks to be set up over there. So Islamic banking, quite honestly, I mean, we see Islamic banking now growing all over the world, but where it made its beginning, its beginning also in Africa. The first to offer Islamic banking was Egypt and Sudan. Today, Sudan has, I think, 8 Islamic banks which are in operation, but as it is from Africa, you know, entire mankind emerged from Africa and then moved on to the world. And the same is true for Islamic finance, that while it started in Africa, but it has moved on from there. It has gone off to Asia and other countries, but from an African point of view, I think there's very little growth over there. There are 37 Islamic financial institutions which are currently in operation over there. Now, recently in Africa, you find that Senegal is planning to tap into the growing Islamic finance business by issuing the first Islamic sovereign bond. This will be done in 2011. I think the mandate has been given for that. We also find Senegal, which has a population of just about 13 million and has 94% Muslims. So structuring of sukuks, sovereign sukuks, both in their local currency as well as in US-based or dollar-based, this is something that is opening up. And here again is an opportunity for people who have structured such transactions over here. Now, again, like I said, Senegal has a very small population of people who are banking, just about 6% of them. Recently, also, you find in South Africa, major steps have been taken. South Africa, which has a population of 49 million with 2% Muslims, but South African government is putting special emphasis. They have brought in new rules and regulations to permit Islamic financial institutes to operate over there. They are bringing changes in their regulatory environment to allow Islamic banks to function. South Africa is experiencing a 8% growth per annum for the past 10 years, and it has a per capita income of $8,000 US. So it's way well advanced. In fact, it's quite a tragedy that when you even go to these small African countries, obviously South Africa is very developed, but even Tanzania, Uganda, Senegal, and when you travel back from there to Pakistan, I think you feel you have come back from civilization into quite an uncivilized world. South Africa is also now in the process of introducing these neutral laws for murabaha, because it's a buying-selling transaction, for mudarbas and diminishing musharaka, because again here the ownership issues are there, and they're making changes in their laws. And recently, Islamic Bank, the development of this is what their South African National Treasury issued a statement, and they said the development of Islamic finance in South Africa is critical to the expansion of national treasury strategy to position South Africa as a gateway to Africa. So this is what they want to do. They want that Islamic finance, the center of Islamic finance must be there, and the government also recognizes how important this is for their country. Moving on to the other countries, Ethiopia, which is relatively small again in population. Ethiopia has about 88 million people with 35% Muslims. Zamzam Bank, which is the first Islamic bank that has been set up or is being set up in Ethiopia over there. There are 3 Islamic banks which have applied for license in Uganda, and they should be coming in operation by the end of this year. The Central Bank of Uganda is amending the banking regulations to allow the establishment of Islamic banks, again bringing about the kind of changes that we saw taking place here in early 2000 or 2002 and 2003. Similarly, if you look at Mauritius, which has a population of only 1.2 million with 17% Muslims, they are also bringing in a change in their Finance Act of 2008, which is also being made, sorry, this is a slide that I probably missed. So this is where we are on Mauritius. They are bringing a change in their Financial Act of 2008 because of the multiple payment issues that are there in order to make them viable for Islamic mode of finances. Mauritius has a very large number of global investment in Sharia-compliant funds. It's the center for its Sharia-compliant funds, and today the Sharia-compliant funds that are parked in Mauritius are in the region of nearly about $75 billion US. It's a huge opportunity to have in such a small country like Mauritius, because of the regulatory laws are such that it allows people to come and have funds being parked over there because of their tax advantages, that nearly $75 billion US of funds are right now parked in Mauritius because of the fact that it is a lot more secure. In fact, ICD is just setting up a bank over there, and hopefully we should have certain contribution going in from Pakistan in that bank also. If you look at North Africa, in North Africa, of course, there are Islamic banks already there in Egypt, Algeria, Tunisia, and we have window operation in Egypt, Morocco, and Algeria, conventional banks also offering. My last two slides, let me just share my African experience in Kenya. Kenya has two full-fledged Islamic banks that are there. There are 8 conventional banks who have Islamic windows. They all came in later on as they saw the success story of Islamic banks. Gulf African Bank, where I was the first CEO of that bank, was set up in 2008. We achieved a break-even in 18 months of our operation. And since then, we have not looked back. The bank is growing rapidly. It's now planning to move into Tanzania and open branches into Uganda. And I think that's, again, a strategy that Islamic banks must consider, that rather than going in with a full-fledged bank, they can open, these countries do allow, because of their small size of economies, they do allow branch banking operations. So therefore, Islamic banks to open up branches in these areas. It is a very profitable business. It was a very profitable business in Kenya also, and that's the reason why it broke even and started to also make profits. Today, as I left over there a couple of months ago, we had 14 branches spread over 5 cities, and we were offering products in both corporate, retail, as well as to our SME customers. Now, my last slide is the key success factor, what really made Islamic banking a success in Africa, and since then it is moving on to other countries. First of all, obviously, is the enabling environment. If you don't have an enabling environment, you will not be able to run a successful Islamic bank. So therefore, immediately after opening the bank, we worked with the Central Bank of Kenya. We introduced the first sukuk. We brought in a sukuk that was useful for us for doing liquidity management for our treasury. That sukuk went extremely well. It is, I think, a 5-year sukuk that was for infrastructure development that we launched. And now I think Central Bank of Kenya is looking to go with the sovereign sukuk, and they probably would be coming into the market for nearly about $500 million, which they want to raise through a sovereign sukuk. Second, like I said earlier, Islamic banking is not selling products. You don't have a product to sell. You are selling knowledge. And as far as knowledge is concerned, it's not something that is floating in the air and one day it descends on you and suddenly you become an Islamic banker. It has to be acquired. Every knowledge has to be acquired painstakingly, and the same is true for Islamic banking. So one has to be patient. One has to invest in a knowledge-based environment, and I think that's what we did in Kenya. We had regularly we would invite, in fact, the first thing we did in Kenya was that we earmarked how many mosques are there around Nairobi, around Mombasa, around Malindi, the places that we were going to open up our branches. We made a list of all the mosques. We made a list of all the imams in those mosques. We invited them to Nairobi for 2 days. We invited Sheikh Isam Ishaq to come in to train these imams on Islamic finance. And since then, we have been doing that every year. For 3 years, we did that. And that brought about a huge amount of goodwill huge amount of goodwill, because people who are the imam of the mosque, they would come, they would stay with us, we would look after them like we would look after like a professional seminar that we are doing in a nice hotel, good environment, and then train them on Islamic finance and have Sharia scholars come from outside to do their training. And that made a huge difference. The other thing that I find different that we don't do in Pakistan, and we used to often do, and we used to regularly do in Kenya, was that before we would open up a branch in an area, it was a mandatory, it was required by the branch manager to look at the area around him, which means his target market. Look if there's an orphanage over there, a school over there, a mosque over there, something that we would do a social responsibility project. And then we would have a team of people go in, paint the mosque or paint the orphanage, look after, make a new place for prayers, etc. And that brought such a great amount of goodwill that people thought that this is not just a bank which comes in and takes our deposit, but it's a place where they're also doing some social service. And this doesn't cost much. Actually, these things would cost you less than the cost of a good advertisement in a newspaper. But it requires effort and it requires time. And I think we need to invest in if we want Islamic banking to grow. Two more things that I want to share with you. One of them is that our focus was on ethical banking and not Islamic banking. I think we have used Islam as a card for far too many things, and it has been discredited in a very big way, extremely. If you use Islamic banking just as a slogan in Kenya, which has just about 15% Muslim population, I think we would probably have not made any headway. We use the term ethical banking. This is a banking which is good for anyone, irrespective of his religion. As Dr. Sabit earlier mentioned, there's something good in it for you. And that's something that we need to project, the ethical side of Islamic banking, and so that we can target a much larger population and not become a niche player. Last but not the least is obviously human resource development, which is, without human resource, banks are not brick and mortar. Banks is made of good people. It's made of people who are ethical, people who walk their talk and talk their walk, both ways, and people who are able to demonstrate that they believe in Islamic principles. It's hard to say that you are a good Islamic banker while you are in the bank and then you go around and partying and drinking and painting the town in the evening. It's hugely contradictory. So therefore, it is important that this human resource development forms a very important part of growth of Islamic banking and finance. And lastly is the share of resources, which is necessary whenever Islamic banks are operating together in a country. It's important that they share the resources rather than competing with each other. So with these few slides, I'd like to thank you all. Jazakallah khair to all of you for hearing me, and thank you very much for the sponsors.
Thank you very much, Najmul Hasan Saab, for sharing your experiences of Pakistan and Africa. And congratulations on setting up from scratch a sizable Islamic bank in Kenya. Been associated with the same group, so I can really vouch for that. To take on from the presentation, I will request Dr. Imran, who is one of the pioneers in Sharia advisory in Pakistan. We've seen the scholars play a role in product development. We have seen them in imparting knowledge in various schools. What do you think the Sharia scholars' role should be in creating awareness in potential customers who are yet to come to Islamic banking?
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Nahmadu wa nasalli ala Rasulil Kareem, amma ba'd. Human resource development, as you have mentioned, Brother Najmul Hasan Saab has also mentioned in his very informative speech regarding Africa. Although he has a very good experience in Mizan Bank, he should have mentioned something about Mizan also. But nevertheless, Alhamdulillah, he have mentioned great information about Africa. So I think we should go Africa also for these things. So regarding that HR development, human resource development, I think scholars have played the vital role for that purpose. Alhamdulillah, my father, as you have mentioned yesterday, mashallah, he has given a very good and informative speech. And previously, I just was thinking that, Alhamdulillah, in Darul Karachi, we have the initiative role for bringing that Islamic banking in Pakistan. As Muhammad Imran would remember that we previously had 2 or 3 conferences about 10 years back held by Center for Islamic Economics, and then we started some programs for like short modules for development of HR and for training the people who are working for Islamic banking. So Alhamdulillah, we have developed different modules, and we together with Muhammad Imran and the others, we started the programs for development in IBA as well. And now Alhamdulillah, these programs of training is Alhamdulillah are running Alhamdulillah in different universities. So I think Sharia scholars are playing a very good role. And now you know that the difference which I see here in Pakistan and outside Pakistan is that in outside Pakistan there are very few scholars who are working with Islamic banks, and just they are the trainers and few trainers who train the people. But what happened here, Alhamdulillah, that when Islamic banking started in Pakistan about 2002, and Islamic banking windows, Islamic banks, banking licenses started to be given. So at that point in time, Dr. Ishaq Hussain was the governor. We decided that we should have a rule that one Sharia advisor should work only for one bank. And at that point in time, we were thinking that it might be difficult to find out the Sharia advisor. But as we see, we say in Urdu that Zarurat Ijad ki maa hai, that necessity is the mother of the invention. So Alhamdulillah, now many scholars have come. So all these scholars are coming, mashallah, and one scholar is working for one bank, and that particular Sharia scholar is working for the development of that team. Now, for example, here in Mizan, Alhamdulillah, we have developed about 40-50 people. Alhamdulillah, we have the biggest Sharia department in which we have, we don't have only muftis, only just one mufti we have, but some other, for example, lawyer, we have the MBA, we have, Alhamdulillah, chartered accountant, but all of them, I can say that, mashallah, they have so much knowledge about these Islamic banking transactions that even if I would say, it might not be wrong that even nowadays some Sharia scholars might not have that particular knowledge of practicing transactions. Because you know that, for example, we study in our books, for example, Hidayah Salis. We read that book, we study that book, and there are some very good examples and some very good rules have been mentioned. But you know that rules, that examples were basically of the ancient days. But nowadays, how to implement that and how they are practiced in the current environment, so it is something else. So now, mashallah, the people who are working in these Islamic banks, I think it's a very good thing that they are developing. And I think that we should work for that, for further grooming them, and to create some awareness program like some other conferences. And you know that we have very few conferences in Pakistan. Dr. Anis Saab, mashallah, they have taken initiative in Rifa University that, mashallah, they are working for that in that particular, and also in Nibaf and some other places. But still, we have some need to develop these things. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Imran. Pervez Saab, you have had a good success in terms of family takaful. Can you share your experience with the industry, how you have benefited more by associating with the banks and using that channel for sales?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. As far as takaful success and then association with the banks, like in family takaful, we normally go to retail customers most of the time, where we have products of investment and risk-based product. And for general takaful, we go for asset and property. As far as associations with the bank and partnership with the banks are concerned, in general takaful especially, the takaful industry when came in the market was relying heavily on the banks, because banks were the one who were creating Islamic assets. And banks were the one, initially takaful came, the need of takaful was sensed after Islamic banking. When Islamic banking came, assets were started building, and they felt there is a need, for example, in ijara or housing finance, you need takaful contracts. So in the beginning, it was felt that it was a bit slow. The banks had some reservations in terms of takaful companies will be able to provide the same services which conventional insurance companies were doing. But now, alhamdulillah, it is picking up now. There are still certain issues as far as service levels are concerned, which I believe the bankers would be able to share better. As far as family takaful is concerned, one of the major channels which we are using now is distributing our product through the counters of the bank. And currently our sales, 60% of the sales is coming through the bank's channel, like the banking distribution channel. And family takaful growth is concerned, like we are year in year we are growing by around 100% every year. Obviously the base is small, but in the retail customer there is a huge demand of the product. But I think there are very few players in the market right now. This is the major challenge which I think industry is facing. There is a need for more players in the market.
Thank you very much. Building on the takaful industry, now how do you see attracting the large customers who are not really coming towards the takaful? And how do you create its awareness among them to have the acceptability?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sallim. First of all, I would like to thank you to the organizers for providing us an opportunity to present our point of view over here, the takaful point of view over here. There is one thing, main hurdle in promoting of takaful is lack of awareness. And for which takaful companies must form strategical alliances among them to promote awareness, to create awareness among the masses. And for this, we have a forum in takaful companies, but that is not enough. क्योंकि सिर्फ फोरम होना काफ़ी नहीं है, बल्कि जो है स्ट्रेटेजिक अलायंस होना चाहिए अमंग तकाफुल कंपनीज, ताकि वो इसको प्रमोट करें और अवेयरनेस जो है क्रिएट करें. और टू क्रिएट अवेयरनेस we should introduce as a subject in universities across the country, takaful as a subject. और इस सिलसिले में तकाफुल कंपनीज़ को आगे आना चाहिए और वो आके उनको जो है वहाँ पर उसको प्रमोट करना चाहिए, ताकि यूनिवर्सिटीज़ में जब स्टूडेंट्स निकलेंगे they would be the ambassadors for us, और वो जो है फिर कंपनीज़ में भी जाएंगे और इस तरह इसको प्रमोशन मिलेगा. और अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह Pakistan has 97% of the population, Muslim population, and majority believe that conventional insurance, interest-based insurance is impermissible, and that is why this is untapped market. So we should concentrate on this market, and also Islamic banking. उसमें भी हमें जो है इस्लामिक बैंकिंग में जो हमारी मेन फोकस है वहाँ होना चाहिए. और इस्लामिक बैंकिंग जो है उसमें हमें जो है ये ज़रूरत है कि फ्रंट एंड पर्सनल्स उनको जो है इस्लामिक बैंकिंग के उनको ट्रेनिंग दी जाए, ताकि वो जो है उसको प्रॉपर जो है अंडरस्टैंड करें और वो हमें सपोर्ट करें इन प्रमोटिंग तकाफुल इन द इंडस्ट्री.
Imtiaz sir, you've had your experiences. Would like you to share how the Takaful industry is keeping pace with the retail banking growth of Islamic banking industry. We've seen 800 branches almost now in Islamic banking industry. How are you planning to keep pace with it?
Thank you, Fawad. Let me confess that Takaful has really drawn huge attention from the economic world during the past decades. And it is witnessed from the fact that the Takaful has grown by over 35% during the past 5 years in countries like Malaysia and GCC countries. In Pakistan, and it is a fact that in countries like Malaysia, even a lot of non-Muslims are opting for Takaful, especially for economic reasons, not for the religious reason, including the transparency of the business. In Pakistan, Takaful is still at the embryonic stage. The first Takaful company came into being in 2005, late 2005, the Parkway Takaful Company. And currently there are 3 Takaful companies. The combined capacity of the 3 Takaful companies are over 2 billion per risk. And let me tell you that over 90% of the risk, the single risks, can be covered, through this, this capacity. The problem in Takaful is not really the awareness on Takaful, but the insurance penetration itself. The insurance penetration in Pakistan is just 0.7% of the GDP, which is not lowest, one of the lowest in the region, but I would say in the world as well, which translate into less than $1 billion US, which is nothing. Even the middle-sized company, the single company can earn this premium in countries like Malaysia or in UAE. Here, as I said, that there are currently there are 3 Takaful companies. We can cater, we can cater to the needs of the Islamic banks as well. But I think it's a matter of confidence while comparing with the conventionals. We need to realize the fact that the conventional companies, the big players, they are in the market for over 60 years, 70 years, and especially in the insurance sector, the policyholders' confidence is very important. Alhamdulillah, as far as we are concerned, we are growing, though the base is small, but still we are growing at the rate of over 35% per annum. And currently the Takaful share in Pakistan is about 3%, as compared to 7% in the Islamic banking. But the Islamic banking, as we know, have completed almost 10 years, whereas it's 5 years. So I'm sure that with the passage of time, especially support from the Islamic banks, we'll be able to keep pace with the Islamic banks and will be able to cater to the needs of the Islamic banks. And of course, the other users of Takafuls are the people who are opting for Takaful.
Well, then we established that we have very low penetration even in the insurance industry, and Takaful share is only 3%. So what steps you would take in terms of increasing your not only market share, but making the pie bigger in terms of this industry, i.e. product innovation or service delivery, or going to the people who don't actually come to it at all for their reservations?
Right, you're absolutely right that especially the Takaful, as Parvez said, that this can be segregated into life and the general Takaful. The product innovation in general Takaful is very simple. I mean, the products offered by the general Takaful, like fire, marine, property, house owners, these are they're simple products. And it's not a rocket science, because basically the current products already in the market offered by the conventional insurance companies are already being offered by the general Takaful companies. And but in the life side, of course, there are a lot of the innovation required in the Takaful as well, whereby we can offer something new to the potential customers and the people who are opting for Takaful. Penetration, as I said, that that is the 3%. I think the major reasons for this 3% is just the life of the Takaful companies itself. Because, as I said, the first company started its operation in 2005, and that too in December. So effectively it was 2006. And after that, the 2 companies came into being even 2 years later. That was something in somewhere in 2007 and 2008. And I think as far as the awareness is concerned, it's not only important for the Takaful, but it's for the insurance penetration, because if we are able to increase the insurance penetration, There are 40 players in Pakistan providing the general insurance, and you can imagine that, you know, a market of less than US $1 billion is nothing for 40 players. The efforts are required on that, you know, for the general insurance as well, and once that penetration increases, I'm sure the Takaful would also benefit in the process.
To summarize on Takaful, basically the way we are, please.
But I would like to add something. Actually, we have to penetrate to the retail business, like personal accident, housing finance, and also in retail business like this. And we should take the advantage of modern technology. These are the broad-based and large volume business, and use of technology make this cost effective, and we can penetrate more in the masses with retail business like Banka Takaful and these type of businesses. Alhamdulillah, in Pak Qatar, we have purchased IT solutions from Malaysia, and we have SAP and ERP solutions which would be benefited in future as well. And also there is major, we do not have facility of terrorism cover across the world. We among Takaful companies, we should create a Takaful terrorism pool because of क्योंकि most of the business जो है वो relate करता है अभी banks, Islamic banks और other banks need terrorism cover. तो terrorism cover के लिए तकाफुल में एक pool अगर हम बना लें और उस pool से हम आगे बढ़ें तो this is एक wide scope होगा इसको promote करने के लिए. और दूसरी चीज़ ये है कि Islamic bank and तकाफुल industry are the partners. तो इसमें इस्लामिक बैंकिंग इंडस्ट्री जो है वी हैव बैंक लिमिट्स प्रॉब्लम, तो इस्लामिक बैंक्स जो हैं उनको जो है हमारी प्रॉब्लम्स को समझना चाहिए. दे शुड अंडरस्टैंड आवर प्रॉब्लम्स, और फॉर प्रमोटिंग तकाफुल इंडस्ट्री वो हमें सपोर्ट करें because of we have enough capacity in re-Takaful. We have foreign partners. So alhamdulillah we have enough capacity. So they can trust us. We can हम उस बिज़नेस को बेहतर तौर पे अंडरराइट कर सकते हैं और उसको जो है उनकी इंटरेस्ट को वॉच कर सकते हैं. तो इस्लामिक बैंकिंग इंडस्ट्री को भी इसमें सपोर्ट करना चाहिए ताकि जो है तकाफुल प्रमोट. थैंक यू.
डॉक्टर साहब आप कुछ कहना चाहें?
I would like to add something on that Takaful thing. As we know that as interest is prohibited and conventional banking system is not allowed by Sharia, the conventional insurance system is also not allowed because of two elements. One is riba, which is interest, as well as the element of gharar and maisir. So we should try our best to develop that particular industry as we could do. But unfortunately there are certain reasons, I don't know how they could be resolved, but there are some facts that that Takaful company is not growing at the pace as Islamic banking is growing, alhamdulillah. So I think there are some facts and we can work out on those things or factors. First of all, I think that SECP, Securities and Exchange Commission of Pakistan, they should play an important role for developing that particular Takaful industry, and they should play an aggressive role for developing that. Secondly, they have issued previously the rule that they would not allow window operation for Takaful company, and only the full-fledged Takaful company could be established. But if I see from the Islamic banking point of view, for example, as a Sharia advisor of any particular or a very large bank like Mizan Bank, alhamdulillah, I always try to urge them, to insist them that you should try to find out a good takaful company. But there are several problems. There are several issues which we have to face. You know that we see there are two types of products. One is the corporate and the other one is, for example, consumers. And the both things, the corporate side, for example, we have Murabaha, Ijara and others, so and so forth. And even for the consumer, we have the car financing or house financing and some other things. So if I say for the bank's owned assets that you should go for takaful, and even we have some shareholding for example, Pak Kuwait Takaful Company and some others. But the problem is that we have to face two or three things simultaneously. First of all, the problem of infrastructure. Previously, there are some companies, for example, EFU and others, Adamji, and they are very large and very big companies. They have developed their infrastructure, they have their human resource and systems and everything is developed. So in these newly established takaful companies, they don't have so strong infrastructure that even the management is hesitant or reluctant to go with them. And if, for example, if it is the case of the management of the Islamic banks, so we can consider, we can expect that how could be the reaction of the other corporates when we ask them to do takaful operations for their assets. For example, if Islamic banks have done leasing and we ask them to do Islamic Sharia compliant takaful operation, or for example to do murabaha, so they say that there are several issues. First issue is that, as I mentioned, that the service issue and infrastructure issue. The second issue is diversification of risk. It is another important issue because these are tiny companies, they are not big companies, they do not want to share, to basically to get the coverage through these companies. So in my now, after seeing all these things, and very frequently we request for exemption to get the conventional insurance, so to get the permission for conventional insurance. So I receive all the way very frequently the request. So now I would say that SECP should consider that to allow to open the window operation for takaful companies so that they could utilize their infrastructure, their systems which already have developed, and even the current takaful company do not have as such that particular strength within that to cover all the risk of the businesses. So we should not have only the target market for Islamic banks as such. If we have that particular target market, still I say that we cannot basically cover that particular market through these takaful company because of these problems. But we should have in our mind the bigger market. We should serve for the conventional banking industry as well. We should serve other corporates who are not doing with the Islamic banks. So for these bigger market or larger market, we have to have more companies, more takaful companies, more windows, so that the risk could be diversified, the better services could be achieved, and competition of the prices would develop. So by that way, I think that the takaful operation could develop in the country.
Ji Parvez.
I think as far as the regulation is concerned, yes, there is issue because SECP doesn't have resources even to regulate conventional insurance industry. So there is no interest at SECP level for takaful. So there is, I think, we don't have any hopes. In Islamic banking, obviously we are seeing State Bank is playing very vital role and they are leading the industry, but it is not happening in SECP. They don't have actually resources even to regulate conventional insurance. So we all know that. As far as takaful companies' capacity is concerned and the issue that they are not very well established, That was true even for the Islamic banks they came. I, as a user of some of the Islamic banks, there are services we could not get actually, even we try so hard, but still we have to stick to the Islamic bank because we feel that this industry which needs to be developed. And I think there is more like a perception issue. Islamic banks have been traditionally giving most of the time a leasing business, which have been, most of the time like leasing motor business, which is giving more than 100% loss ratios. You can see the Takaful company's balance sheet that and P&L accounts. So I think currently even a large insurance company cannot insure all the assets. They normally go with the arrangement of co-insurance or co-takaful. This is how it happens. Yes, there is a need in the takaful industry that they should basically take more and more assets on the basis they do not enter on the price war between the takaful companies, which was happening unfortunately lately. And there is a need for banks to understand that as well. I think there is a perception issue rather than real issues. They can actually, it's the takaful companies, they have now capacities available. There were shortage earlier. As far as windows are concerned, the problem was this, that SECP said that there will not be a window, and then immediately after that they said that they will allow window. 5 years they didn't take any decisions. In 2005 when rule came, 7 to 8 players came in the market. They wanted to take license, but when SECP said we are allowing window, so everybody shied away. They said, okay, fine, we'll wait for window. And for 5 years they have not allowed window. So if they would have allowed window at that time, or if they have said no windows, so these big players would have come as a dedicated player. So keeping this as hanging around, that made actually things went against the industry, so new players could not come. So more new players will mean more competition, more investment in infrastructure.
Well, very rightly said. I think media should project these issues to SECP for resolution at its earliest. In very simple statement, I would say, the takaful industry is here to grow. There is a lot of untapped market, even by insurance, which it should capture. And its growth is correlated to Islamic banking itself, because it should go hand in hand to foster the growth. Moving on, we have already consumed a lot of time, I think. Imran, could you please elaborate as far as Bank Islami or the industry is concerned? We've seen the unrestricted investment accounts in Mudarba and Musharka business. We have seen consumer finance in terms of home. We've seen car, and we have also seen a lot of new developments in terms of laptop financing. We're seeing from Mizan Bank. What is next? Where do we go from here?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I think it's a very pertinent question, where to go from now. First of all, Najm Sahab, it was a pleasure listening to you after a short break in Pakistan, so welcome back to Pakistan. It's always a pleasure to listen to your presentations. I was just thinking when Najm Sahab was presenting about Africa, there are so many similarities between our market in Pakistan and Africa. Both are in the stage where we are developing right now. Yes, we have done the Ijara as far as the auto financing is concerned. We have done the diminishing Musharka for house financing concerned. Mizan is doing laptop financing. Now, when we go and meet customers, the next level is the customer, the common man, the mass market, they ask us, what's in it for me? Now, if we are offering around the similar rates that the conventional banks are offering, if we are offering the similar products that the conventional banks are offering, what's further in terms of Islamic banking that we have in our pocket to offer to them? I have just returned yesterday from the flood affected areas and interior Sindh, and this is something that I think this is really it has a very strong impact on my mind, that what has happened with our brothers within our country in the same province is something that we should do something as an industry. It can be a starting point. Now the pity is that the way to the mind of the people goes through the heart. And we must admit as an industry that although we have been here for the last 10 years, one thing that we have missed is working as one industry in terms of Islamic banking. We haven't got a platform yet. Now, let's say if we at Bank Islami want to initiate a charity program that we have done at our bank, I'm sure Mizan would be doing the similar things, and so would be Faisal and the other banks. But have we done anything as far as the industry is concerned as one Islamic banking industry? Now, charity work, as Najm Sahab has pointed out, it creates a lot of goodwill. it creates a lot of special place in the heart of the people. Now, if someone comes over and asks us what sort of a charity thing that we have done for the country, the earthquake has come and it has gone by. Last year there was a huge flood. This year again our brothers are asking for the help. Have we done anything as an industry for them? We have not. So I think one of the key points, the takeaways from this conference can be that let's join our hands together. This will create a goodwill for us as well, and let's do something for our brothers and sisters who are right now, they are desperate for the help. And then we have, even if we cannot share some of the money from the profits, we do have, all the banks have charity accounts. And we do have a very good system which is being governed by the Sharia scholars like Dr. Imran Usmani. And we can have an independent body that can govern for that. And all the banks, if they join the pool for the charity, I think it can create a huge impact in terms of the contribution that Islamic banks have made towards the economy of the country. And it will also give us the goodwill that we always want in terms of segregating and differentiating ourselves from the conventional banking.
Very well said, Imran. Imran, you just talked about in the beginning that people are looking for something different rather than. So do you believe there is a high possibility if we are able to become distributors of venture capital for the consumer, because consumers are willing to take risks for ventures, and we don't see any venture capital in Pakistan at all?
There were a couple of venture capital companies. I know of one which was TMT Ventures. My friend Suhaib Umar was the CEO of the company. They did start very interesting projects. One of our majority shareholders, yes, they still have a private equity wing. They were also willing to go in the venture capital. But for the venture capital, the most important thing is that you have to have a regulatory framework for that. And number two, the economy of the country should be working at a level where there is one, trust of the government, and then trust amongst the people to invest in the venture capital investments. So unfortunately, the overall industry environment is not conducive for that. However, I think venture capital comes naturally to Islamic banking because it is very much related to the musharka modes of financing that we promote. Secondly, the returns that venture capitalists do produce are pretty huge. And even in the American economy, if we see that, especially in the Silicon Valley, these are the companies that we see, the Googles and the Apples of the world. They started off at a very, very small scale. At one point in time, I'll just quote one example. There's this company with the name of Zappos, Z-A-P-P-O-S. Zappos.com, they sell shoes. In Spain, as they call Zapateria, it's called shoes. Now they sell shoes online. It was started through a venture capital company. Their total sale of shoes across the globe is more than the export of Pakistan. Now, shoes is something that you couldn't even imagine buying online because once you haven't tried it, you don't buy it. But they have such a strong marketing strategy with their hand. The venture capital has gone huge. And if you go to their website, you will be amazed to see what sort of offerings that they are offering. So, yes, of course, the opportunity is there. But then the industry and the regulation should be conducive for that.
Najm Saab, just to wrap it up, since we started with you, how do you see your experience in Africa versus in Pakistan in Islamic banking industry? You have been there in both the places at the time of beginning.
I think really I would like to just first begin by something that I missed out, and that's how Shaitan does to you. I really want to be, my learning of Islamic banking and my knowledge of what I had and my experience that I gained is clearly the product of Mizan. I think Mizan has set a pace. I'm part of the original team. I remember Dr. Saab. I've learned so much from him, from his father, one of the most eminent people that I really know. And it's a great honor for us. And I think that's what I really applied when I went to Africa. It was nothing new than what we were doing in Mizan, clearly exactly the same thing. So my apologies for not really first being grateful and thankful. I think one has to be grateful to people before, and then you can be grateful to your Almighty also. What I really feel different in Pakistan as in Africa, like I said, Africa, you can't sell Islam. You can't use the Islamic card to sell a product because of the fact that one, the number of Muslims are less, particularly in Kenya, about 15% or so. So you have to put in an angle that there's something good in it for you. Therefore you build your whole model around a service network or a service mindset of your people that we have to go out of the way in order to satisfy our customer. When a customer walks into an Islamic bank, he must get an experience of something which is different from what he's getting in a conventional bank. There must be some way in which we are able to project what we really believe in. So that's one thing that we did. We had a very strong service culture within the Gulf African Bank, and we continue to project that. In fact, Gulf African Bank, in the very first year of operation, we got an award. We were the runner-up of the best service provider in Kenya. There were 40 banks in Kenya, and the central bank gave us an award to Gulf African Bank as the second best customer service provider. And they do this mystery shopping through their own companies, and then they come in and they measure everyone, what is the experience, how was the banking hall, how clean was, how long it took for a person to greet. We also went in with a very standard program of teaching our people in the branch 6 or 7 things that they must do. When someone walks in, how will you greet him? When you do a concluded business, what would you say? Very small things which basically must reflect our service culture, which is, Islam has a huge service culture to it. So that's what I find different over here. That's what I found different in Pakistan. Hey, we try and sell more on an Islamic way. This is Sharia compliant. This is this, this is that. But at the end of the day, frankly speaking, there is that much you can do to sell your product for a Muslim. I had this great friend of ours of Sitara, Mia Idris Saab. He used to say there's a cost of being a Muslim. There's a COBD, cost of being a Muslim. Now that cost is both in terms of return as well as the kind of bad service that you get. So if we want our takafuls to grow, if we want our Islamic finance to grow, I think at the back end, yes, we are doing everything in a Sharia compliant way because that's what we stand for. But in the front end, we must be able to compete with the rest of the world. If the Citibanks and the Standard Chartered and all the top world are able to give you an X level of service, we must be able to give them X plus 1. Now, if you are able to do that, you will be able to sell. It's like a halal restaurant. No one goes to a halal restaurant, or a non-Muslim would not go there just because there's a halal food. He goes there because he gets value for his money. He gets great service. And so therefore they become popular wherever they are open. They're not open big, there's a small Muslim population too. I think that's where we must turn our attention. In Pakistan, we must turn our attention not just to sell a product because of Sharia. That's our belief. That's our core value. It has to be Sharia compliant. But at the front, we must be able to be better than what the conventional banks are doing. Now, the day we become better than them as far as service is concerned, you can rest be assured. You will always grab the market, whether it's takaful or whether it is your Islamic banking products or retail or whatever products that are there.
Very rightly said.
MashaAllah, Brother Fawad is moderator of this session, and he has asked many questions from all of us. And now I would become a moderator for you. So I want to ask some question from you, that you are working, mashallah, for Faisal Bank, and you know that Faisal Bank was the starter of Islamic banking in Pakistan. And you know that my father, alhamdulillah, worked for about 20 or 25 years back for Faisal Bank, and then there was some gap in Faisal Bank, Islamic banking. And my contact with youth was in BMI Bank in Bahrain, alhamdulillah, and I have experience with you, a very good, mashallah, commitment in yourself. So what is your planning, and how do you see that, how would you take that Faisal Bank Islamic wing towards Islamic banking? May I ask that question from you?
By all means, you have every right to. I understand that Faisal Bank started as an Islamic bank when there was no licensing at that point in time. At that time, Al Barka Bank was also there. I think Al Tawfiq Investment Bank used to be an Islamic-based banking system. I understand since 2007, the conventional banking license was granted by State Bank of Pakistan. I wasn't part of the team or at that point in time in this country, so really can't speak what was the deciding factors behind that. But as Islamic banking was separately started, the working was started in 2007. We got the license and we opened our first branch in 2009. As far as Islamic banking is concerned, for Faisal Bank Islamic Banking Wing, I can proudly say that we, in terms of Sharia, we have made no compromise. We have compromised business on the basis, where Sharia restrictions apply, or where there is a gray area, we have taken the conservative route. As far as Islamic banking for Faisal Bank is concerned, one branch almost 2 years back. Today we have 43 branches, and we should be closing with 46 Islamic dedicated branches across Pakistan in about 20 cities. Our services, as I would say, the key USP, Sharia is a prerequisite, is no longer a USP in terms of Islamic banking. Najm Saab has very rightly said, we provide best services without compromise, and we provide online and all banking services across other branches, except selling any product or opening an account or anything, because that's where the Sharia education has to be there. So slowly and steadily, we expect to be a significant part of the bank operating. Obviously, we're using some things in Synergy, which is the back end, where we train the back end people for our products. We don't need to spend, because those people have enough skill set, and enough skill set has been developed to share the resources. But all funds, all selling channels are separated, segregated as per the regulation, as per our Sharia advisors requirement. Thank you very much. That was a very, I would say, unexpected question. We summarize here that Islamic banking is, mashallah, doing very well. We've got experience shared from Africa. We've had experience shared from the Takaful and the retail banking industry. Once again, thank you very much, everybody.
Asking a question, excuse me. Sir, one question from Najmullah Saab. My name is Javed Aziz from Al Baraka. You said that you provide Takaful to many people, but simultaneously you have very good contacts abroad for reinsurance. So is it a mix of conventional, or you get reinsurance from Takaful?
Alhamdulillah, we have the arrangements with Takaful partners across the globe, in Malaysia, Bahrain, and 100% from Takaful partners. And now, you know, major reinsurer like Munich Re, Swiss Re, and Hannover Re has their Takaful windows in the world, and assisting us in managing the business.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Sadaqat. I want to give one suggestion about that. It is now concluded that Takaful is not progressing as well as Mizan Bank and other Islamic banking were progressed in the past. Now, I think there are two main reasons behind that. One is the lack of public awareness, perhaps due to lack of proper campaign from insurance companies. Secondly, some of the scholars in Pakistan, they are totally against the Takaful. They are not accepting Takaful as an Islamic solution of conventional insurance. So, in two different sectors, work should be done in order to generate and establish properly Takaful insurance. So, are some Sharia scholars, they are helping in the matter.
It's not Takaful, you've rightly mentioned that it's not progressed that well, but the life of the Takaful companies is very, 2 to 3 years old. 2005, SCCP came with the rules. In 2007, Takaful companies started to come in. Then this issue of window came. There are only 5 companies right now, 3 general Takaful companies and 2 family Takaful companies in the market. General Takaful companies are having more difficulties because of that conventional general insurance industry is not doing well. They are not making, their growth is around 0.5% a year. and they are making underwriting losses. There are a couple of big players who are not playing by the rules, and SCCP doesn't have means to manage them. And SCCP doesn't treat Takaful and non-Takaful companies differently. And as far as Sharia scholars are concerned, there is an awareness issue. Banking, normally there was awareness. And whenever actually you go and talk to them, they understand pretty well. Companies could not spend so much money. The reason is that there is a poor capitalization in the market. A Takaful company can start with 300 million rupee, a general Takaful company, and 500 million rupee for a family Takaful. So it doesn't allow a company to invest heavily in technology, in human resource development, training and development, and then to create awareness and running some media campaigns. Even it doesn't, you don't see that those ads coming in insurance as well. You see in India, you see every fourth ad would be from an insurance company. It doesn't happen in Pakistan. So this is one of the major issues, that insurance companies and Takaful, they are poorly capitalized as compared to, you see, the banking industry.
Let me add on that, even in Takaful, like insurance, as I said, that the insurance market is, just $1 billion US, and out of those 40 companies, the 80% insurance rests with the major 5 players. For the simple reason that those 5 players are operating in Pakistan for over 60 years. So as for the insurance industry or for the general Takaful, the reinsurance capacity or the re-Takaful capacity is very important, which is given to the company as you grow. So even in the conventional insurance, if you see, as I said, the 35 companies, those who have been in the operation for over 10 years, for 15 years, so their share in the insurance market is very minimal for the simple reasons that, they are new company compared to the big players, those who have been operating for 50 or 60 years. So as we grow, with the passage of time, we gain our capacity, and the more companies are allowed, and I think we'll be able to cater to the needs, and this would certainly grow. And as I said, the share 3%, I can safely say that inshallah within the next 3 to 4 years, the share should not be less than the Islamic banking share, in the conventional banking. Thank you.
I'd like to add a comment. This is Shahzad from Pak Qatar General Takaful. I'd just like to add a comment regarding someone just said, we are just 5 years, the Takaful industry has just been there for 5 years. If you talk about Islamic banking 5 years ago, it's at the same stage, at growth stage. So I believe Islamic banking as a short-term objective, Islamic banks can play a major role for the penetration of Takaful products in the market. The three Takaful companies definitely can join hands to facilitate all the corporate customers. The only challenge we have is the re-Takaful arrangements. Yes, that is the major thing. Otherwise, the 3 companies are capable enough to facilitate each and every asset of the corporate that is linked to any Islamic bank. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the comment. Just to wrap it up, I think we heard from Najam Saab about the African market. It was quite hurting to note that one of our colleagues was part of that success story. The topic which was given to panel was quite diversified. We had customer services and QA issue which we could not address. This is yesterday as well, it was mentioned by Salimullah Saab as well, that what is happening as far as customer care and services are concerned, what kind of quality control, what banking industry and Takaful companies are doing. And then we had innovation in liability side product, which obviously in the limited time we could not address. But and on the HR development, when Imran Bhai mentioned that yes, what is happening now that with the passage of time, more and more institutions are coming. We are seeing Rifa University, we are seeing now CI took the lead, now Karachi University, NABAF and so many other institutions. And the growth opportunity which was presented to us by, say, in African market or in Middle Eastern market, we could see there is a huge demand for the human resource. Pakistan has already taken lead. We can export resources from here to abroad as well. This is the only area I think which we could do that. And finally, I think in Takaful company needs to come up progressively to cater to the conventional industries need as well and to the Islamic banking. And with this, I think with the passage of time, it would take a while because normally there is a tipping point and after that the industry would grow. I think this point is yet to come, but alhamdulillah, the response from the market is pretty good. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. Hello.
I think we have to wrap up now, please. Could you please wrap it up for us?
Ladies and gentlemen, can we please give the panel a big round of applause?